Hi there, everyone. I'm Kyleton, and today I'm going to talk about Zoom. Specifically, I'm going to share a few things about why we do what we do for the Virtual European Forum. I'm going to walk you through how to use the interface, specifically telling you the reasons behind the way you'll use that interface. So starting out, it's important that you take what you learn here and go download the Zoom application on your computer. Test it out, try it out. Zoom does update periodically, so they may have moved things. It's really important that you know where to find the right buttons to accomplish what you need, especially when we get into the negotiation sessions or the press conference, because it may take that moment's notice to get your point across, and you don't want to lose it. So starting out, I'm going to show you the raise hands function. With large groups, it's difficult to keep track of who has their hand up. And especially with different screens, if a screen's being shared, you can't see all the participants at once. So down here at the bottom in the newest update to Zoom, they have that under the reactions section. And you'll go in here and you'll select raise hand. And you'll see there that it has the hand raised. Now, to undo it, you go back, you click on there, and you click lower hand. You'll raise your hand when you want to speak, or when you want to ask a question, or when you want to be added to the speakers list in a negotiation session. We do ask that you lower your hand after you've been added. Make sure to pay attention to that. From time to time, the chairs may lower your hand for you. You want to make sure they don't have to, though, because what if you actually didn't get added or you didn't get your chance to speak? Helps prevent mistakes if you take ownership of raising and lowering your hand. Next up, yes or no. These will be used for voting, which is very important. They are also located from the reactions button. When we're voting, it's a consensus-based vote, meaning the yeses and the nos are important. When just raising a hand, we can tell that means a yes, but if the hand's not up, is it just because they haven't voted yet, or is it because they're voting no? Yes or no clears it up, makes it real straightforward. We can know exactly who's voting for what. Now, moving on to other functions to use, the chat. The chat is restricted in the sense that you can chat to everybody, where you'll make notices about point of personal privilege or specific questions, making a motion, or you can chat to your host for whichever session you're in. Now, typically this is going to be your chair or conference management. And that way, if you have a specific question or something comes up, you can get a hold of them rapidly since they're on the Zoom platform with you. Now, to close this, you go to the red X. And this is on Windows, of course. It may be a little different on your computer. Make sure to go practice. Now, the chat function, I want to make sure to add, it's very limited within Zoom. And guess what? When Zoom closes and we end the session for the day, all of that chat is gone. It's not saved anywhere. For your interactions, for your deal making, for interacting with the media or one of the other committees we may have, use Workplace. It is imperative that you have another device, and I would say download the chat app, Workplace Chat, and download the Workplace app. There's two apps, kind of like Facebook, right? It's made by them. There's one that's got all the groups and everything, and there's one that's dedicated to messaging. Make sure to get it. You can make voice calls, you can do emojis and files, you can do video calls with individuals or teams. It's very powerful, and even while you're negotiating, I'm not going to say it, but I've seen people who take a point of personal privilege and go make a side deal. So Get the app, workplace. That's what really ties together all the committees. Now, back in Zoom, you should have gotten your conference package by this point, which includes a virtual background. For adding the virtual background, you'll go down to your video. And here I just have a generic video background from a camera feed, so it doesn't actually show me because I'm recording. And on the button down here, it has a little arrow. Clicking the button itself turns your video on or off. The arrow brings selections. For example, I can go and change my camera source. This will be important in case your video is not working. And you can go and see, there I am. You can test it out, make sure your video works. Now, I'm going to switch this back off and show you the virtual background. This is where you have a choice of different defaults, but then also you can add an image right here. The plus button, and you go to add image. I've already pre-added the VEF background, and so it shows the VEF background, plus this is recognized as an image just because I have that simulated camera going. Just ignore it. Now you have options down here to mirror your video, and that is for you only. It doesn't change how it looks for anybody else. And that's so that the screen looks like a mirror. When you move your hand left, it looks like it moves left on the screen. Now, what if your computer doesn't let you add the virtual background? That's fine. I would say don't even mess with the green screen feature. You can try, test it out, but what it does is it uses a large blank canvas, like I have this gray one here, whether it's a white wall or something like that, and it treats that as a color that it'll cancel out, and it'll overlay the virtual background. So that could be problematic. If you have a white background, white wall, and a white shirt, whitish skin, blonde hair, it'll cancel out you too with the virtual background. So I tell people don't even mess with it. What'll be more important is if you can't use the virtual background, please, we encourage you to tidy up your space for a professional appearance. That's important. Doesn't matter what's a little off to the left or a little off to the right of the screen, as long as what everybody sees is tight and clean and ready to negotiate, right? And so that's the virtual background option. I'm going to leave this on here so you can see what it looks like. And I'll turn my video off. It disappears. If I switch the video input, you can see it now overlays me on the video. That's great. Now next, while we're down here, the mute button. Now this controls your audio too. If you see the little arrow, you can click that and you have your microphones, you have your speakers. This is where you're going to go and figure out how to set up so that everybody can hear you and you can hear everybody. The most common issue with audio is something right here not being selected right. As you can see, there's 1,000,001 things on mine. And there have been times where it's frustrated me to no end. Go in, test it out, make sure you know which selections you need so that if for some reason it gets reset, you can go back and change it to what it needs to be. And of course, to mute, you'll hit the general button and it is muted. Now, that's how to mute the audio, that's how to control the video, that's how to set your virtual background. We do ask two things. One, when you're in a formal session and you are not speaking, keep yourself muted, please. And that is because none of us can control all the background noises that happen. And if it's happening during another speaker's point or where they have the table, that could be really distracting. So keep it muted when you're not speaking. If you're in a back and forth flow of discussion in an informal session or a socialization session, keep it off mute, right? Be aware of what the circumstances are and make the right decision for that. 2, keep your video on. The virtual environment is really, really critical having that face-to-face element. What tends to happen is if your video is off, a lot of people make the assumption that you are not there or not paying attention. You could even tell everybody that you don't feel well or you're not dressed up right. I've seen it in a lot of different virtual groups, and it's kind of like you're out of sight, out of mind until you speak up, and suddenly people are like, "Oh, you're still there." So please mute yourself when it's not your turn to speak or you're not in an open speaking session, and 2, keep your video on so that people know you're present. And guess what? If you need to step away for a point of personal privilege, or we take a lunch session and you're away from the computer, turn the video off. And that way people, they know you're not there, and you could be eating or whatever, and it's just fine. So, okay, we covered raising, lowering your hands, yes, no for voting, the chat, the virtual background, your video and audio selections, how to mute and unmute, leave your video on. The last thing, and you'll see I already have a sample right here, your name. Depending on what your organization that you have your Zoom account from or previous meetings you've been in, it may show up as something like business development. You have to change your name. We don't have the ability to go and change all the names rapidly. So how you do that is over your image. If you didn't do it when it first loads up, usually it prompts you if you haven't signed in before. But over your image, anytime you can go over it and you can right click your mouse and it'll bring up a menu and you can go to rename. You can also left click on the 3 dots on the upper right and you can go to rename. You can also change your profile picture there if you don't particularly like the one you have. I don't have good photos of me because I usually take all the photos. So you're stuck with these faces for now. Now here you can see to rename, it pops up. We do ask you to use this format, your alter ego name, so somebody knows that they're speaking to Boris Johnson, right? And he's from the UK and it's the Foreign Affairs Council. And then your real name, Kyle Denton, right? That's not your name, that's my name. And that way they attach the face to the alter ego, but they also know who you are in real life, right? So that covers the last thing I wanted to share. If you have any issues, reach out to your chair. They have a lot of experience doing this, even when they tell you they don't. They're pretty amazing, right? Or the conference management team. They'll be able to help you out. We have a whole team of staff here to support you. So I'm really excited. I can't wait for our first prep session. We have some surprises coming for you. So stay tuned. Go test everything out and make sure you're prepped in advance. Make sure you have good internet and a good place to focus. And I'll see you online.